2020. Je suis ravi de vous retrouver ce soir, ce matin. Merci, tout va bien. Ravi de vous retrouver ce matin. On va commencer très rapidement, je ne vais pas détailler le programme de la journée, on va commencer très rapidement parce que nous avons une conférence qui doit démarrer à l'heure. So I will continue in English. So, as you know, we've been engaged for about a year in a collaborative research in partnership with the Université de Rouen. So, school student speech and multilingualism. We actually were very privileged to host on 2 occasions academic researchers from the Université de Rouen, and to have the pleasure, and we will have today the pleasure to welcome Dr. Mehmet Ali Akinci. So Dr. Mehmet Ali Akinci has arrived in San Francisco a few days ago and has already started to work with our teams in Sausalito and Ashbury last Thursday and Friday. And today, we are really happy to have him for this exceptional conference, which is being broadcasted live on our YouTube channel. So Dr. Mehmet Ali Akinci currently works at the Department of Language and Communication at the Université de Rouen-Normandie, where he teaches about language acquisition. His research fields primarily relate to the acquisition and the development of the language in bilingual children. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Mehmet Ali Akinci.
Bien, moi aussi je vais commencer en français. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Et permettez-moi, donc, comme il est de coutume, de remercier donc, Monsieur le Proviseur Emmanuel Texier, ainsi que toute son équipe, hein, donc les directrices Elsa Rodriguez, Christine Miez et Monsieur Christophe Cadon, et ainsi que je n'oublie pas Laurence Madamour, pardon, sans qui donc cette collaboration n'aurait pas eu lieu peut-être. Et je voudrais également remercier parmi les personnes, Christine Posetti et Claire, donc Christine qui a été vraiment au petit soin avec moi depuis mon arrivée à l'aéroport. Merci Christine. Ainsi que je n'oublie pas donc les classes que j'ai pu visiter à Sausalito, les classes de Anne-Sophie Viard, Nathalie Baeza, Émilie Goncelin, et à Ashbury, Alexis Bussière et Ludivine Jacquet. Merci également de m'avoir accueilli. J'espère que vous ne m'avez pas perçu comme inspecteur. J'étais juste là, l'oreille fine, tendue plutôt vers les enfants et pas du tout donc par ce que vous faisiez dans la classe. Et je ne me permettrai pas, puisque je n'ai pas cette qualité, ou en tout cas cette compétence pour observer et je ne suis pas inspecteur, voilà, je suis juste chercheur. Je me suis préparé donc d'abord en français, mais donc on m'a dit qu'il y avait des personnes donc, qui étaient live from all over the world, so I will switch to English and present my paper or my communication today in English. So forgive my French-English accent. Sometimes when I go to conferences, they say, "Oh, you're from France." I say, "How do you know?" "You're a French-English accent, of course." And then when they saw my name, they say, "Are you really French?" I say, yes, I'm a Turkish man living in France, don't worry. So my philosophy in life is, do you know, never explain, never complain, be yourself. So for my English, never explain, never complain, be yourself. It's me. Okay. We have a very, very strong program for this conference. Bilingualism in general, definition and typologies, and then how objectively evaluate a bilingual child. We will also see the link between bilingualism and education, and then we will finish by the bilingual child language acquisition. So it's a little bit too much for 1 hour and a half, but I will try to do my best, and if I skip some views, don't worry, I let the lycée available this PPT presentation. So, because it's a lot, I have more than 166 views. So it's really, really too much. Ok, just en français pour les francophones, donc les collègues, quelques lectures. Bon, vous avez un certain nombre de lectures ici, éventuellement. Et parmi ces lectures-là, ce que je vous conseille, c'est François Grosjean, parler plusieurs langues, Le monde des bilingues, et Du bilinguisme en famille au plurilinguisme à l'école, de Christine Hello. Vraiment, ce sont deux ouvrages clés. Si jamais vous devez vous initier au bilinguisme, je vous conseille fortement ces ouvrages. Sinon, vous avez également un ouvrage grand public, Abdel Laboreur, Le défi des enfants bilingues, et plus spécifique par rapport à l'acquisition du langage chez l'enfant, donc un ouvrage qui est paru en 2017, Ranka Vijay-Babic, L'enfant bilingue, de la petite enfance à l'école. Là, c'est plutôt plus spécifique. Alors, pour les collègues anglophones, for our colleagues who has no French competences, Life is Two Languages from François Grosjean. And you have the choice, Foundation of Bilingualism, Bilingual Education and Bilingualism from the very well-known all over the world, Colin Baker. And then you have a new one, Educating Emergent Bilinguals, from this very recent book from Ofelia Garcia and Anna Clifton, forward by Jim Cummings. And then, as usual in the English world, the handbooks. We have 3 handbooks: Bilingualism and Multilingualism, Handbook of Bilingualism, the Bilingualism Reader, and the last one in 2018, Bilingualism, the Cambridge Handbook of Bilingualism. There are so much books about bilingualism, and you can choose what you want. So, you have also, for French colleagues, the website of Île-de-France. And these are really some sentences about languages. When you have in your classes, for instance, some children from Albanese, for instance, you don't know what sort of language is, and then you can go there and you have 3 or 4 pages synthetic view of the language with how it functions and what are the words and etc. etc. So you have the list of these languages. This is available on the website of, you have the website here. And you can see that there are many, many languages. You have also, I'm sure you already know it, Dulala, and you have they have pedagogical vision techniques, and you can also go there. And so, it's okay? Yes? Is it a little bit very quick? No.
Are we going to have your slide?
Sorry?
Are we going to have your slide?
Yes, you will have. No problem. I will let the lycée to have your slides, to have my slides, no problem. I share everything, only my wife I'm sharing. No. Okay. So, to begin with, je reviens en français. Perhaps you recognized him, Amin Malouf. Je vais le lire en français. L'apprentissage commence très tôt, dès la première enfance. Volontairement pas. Lycéen le modèle, le façonne, lui inculque des croyances familiales, des rites, des attitudes, des conventions. La langue maternelle, bien sûr. Et oui, des frayeurs, des aspirations, des préjugés, des rancœurs, ainsi que des sentiments d'appartenance comme de non-appartenance. Si vous aviez un ouvrage à lire dans votre vie, je vous le recommande fortement si vous ne l'avez pas déjà lu. C'est un petit ouvrage d'essai philosophique, il fait 150 pages à peu près. Amin Malouf, 1998, Identité meurtrière. Vous allez voir qu'en fait, on relativise beaucoup les choses et la vie et l'autrui et tout ce qui nous entoure après avoir lu ce petit essai. Et pour nos collègues anglophones, in English, the apprenticeship starts very soon, in early childhood, deliberately or otherwise. Those around him mold him, shape him, instill into him family beliefs, rituals, attitudes, and conventions, together, of course, with his native language, and also certain fears, aspirations, prejudices, and grudges, not forgetting various feelings of affiliation and non-affiliation, belonging and not belonging. Very interesting book, and it is translated into many languages, and you have here the English version, The Name of Identity, Violence and the Need to Belong. So, I hope you recognize him. Yes, who recognized him? Nobody? Oh. So he's Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. And what he said, he who does not know foreign languages does not know anything about his own. Yes, because we are aware of our own language, when we begin to learn another language, we see the difficulties, the specificities, and everything looking that it doesn't function as the same our native language. And you see, for instance, that in many languages there is no genres, féminin, masculin, and then you discover the details of your language with discovering other languages, and it's very, very important. Another one, I think, is he looks like more recent. Tim Kamin said, to reject the child's language in the school is to reject the child, because the child has his own knowledges. And when, for instance, a foreign child came to the school, he has already one language or sometimes many languages. And what the school do, please forget your own languages or language, and you have to learn the language of the school. But he has already one language, one system. So, in fact, we have to say that we can use these competencies in order to better learn the language of the school. That's why he said that, for instance, if he already knows how to place the adjectives, for instance, he will be able to place in other languages. That's very important. So, a little, I hope it will work.
Après, comme c'est parler, l'étape d'après, c'est d'apprendre plusieurs langues. Et aussi étonnant que ça puisse paraître, le fait d'être bilingue ou trilingue, ça permet au cerveau de développer des compétences dans des domaines beaucoup plus vastes que le langage que les langues.
Je m'appelle Bella et j'ai 4 ans. Me llamo Bella, tengo 4 años. My name is Bella, I am 4 years old.
Cette petite fille russe possède un talent hors du commun.
Je sais parler russe, anglais, français, espagnol, allemand, italien, arabe et chinois.
Oui, vous avez bien compté, à seulement 4 ans, Bella parle couramment 8 langues. Comment une telle performance est-elle possible? Vous allez voir qu'au-delà de la prouesse, le multilinguisme peut avoir des conséquences positives insoupçonnées sur la vie de nos enfants. Nous sommes à Moscou et chez Bella aujourd'hui, c'est l'heure d'un cours de pâtisserie pas tout à fait ordinaire. Comment on appelle ça?
Farine.
Du chocolat.
Et une cuillère de bois. Ça commence à la dire.
Le cours se déroule en français et pour cause. La chef est une Française installée en Russie.
Tu mélanges.
Un petit peu plus vite quand même.
Comme ça.
Oui. Bien dans la main.
À son âge, à 4 ans, de pouvoir se concentrer comme ça et de pouvoir réfléchir comme ça et poser, c'est quelque chose que j'admire. C'est très rare de voir des enfants comme ça. Je pense que c'est un don.
Un don, pas vraiment. D'autant que Bella n'a pas été diagnostiquée surdouée. C'est plutôt une forme d'apprentissage unique en son genre.
Mamie, qui on va mettre les décorations?
Aucun cours traditionnel avec des manuels scolaires, mais des langues étrangères introduites dans des activités du quotidien.
Un tout petit peu dessus.
Et après le cours de cuisine en français, place à la leçon de chant. En chinois, s'il vous plaît. Ainsi, Bella passe entre 15 et 30 heures par semaine à jouer en chinois,
Marcher.
à cuisiner en français, à faire du roller en espagnol, du patin à glace en allemand, à discuter en anglais avec sa mère. High five!
Okay, it's enough. So, when first I saw this video, I believed that she has a high IQ, and it's not the case. And yes, everybody has no chance to have 5 nannies in the week, but it is the case for her. And I try to, after seeing this video, try to list some principles to acquire and learn well. And it's all over the world. It's the same here or in France and all over the world. First, harmonious, suitable family environment. We can see that here. She is happy with her whole family. And then take pleasure in learning. This is very, very important. And I say to my students, they are very older, if you don't take pleasure in what you are learning, you will never learn. And it's the first of the principle. And then, because you have to be motivated. And if you have no motivation, you can try many times and you will never success how. For children, the earlier, the better. And the earlier, the better for me is before 7. 7 is very important, and I will show you some brain images. And that's why if you want to begin with a language, with an activity, it should be before 7. And for language, sure, it should be since birth. And then rewarding the effort. And for me, rewarding all effort doesn't mean that you have to buy the last iPhone or the last mobile phone or something like this. Rewarding means buying books for children. And practicing, training, daily investments. If you say, oh, okay, I worked at school, okay, you worked at school, but your homework, you have to do. For me, if we want, it's a choice, yes, you know, you have seen, we haven't seen the movie, we have the mother, Bella's mother, she said, oh, she is very happy, everything. And then, because she is training 30 hours a week, all the week, so it's long. And what we are, sometimes we say, okay, I did my homework, and then we need practices. Look at the champions. When they are champions of the world, they don't say, oh no, I'm champion, I will go to sleep and do well. No, they are practicing, training, daily investigating, because they want to be champion. Okay, so if you want to champion like this, since birth, reading books or telling stories to the child in both or all languages you have at home. And then during the dinner, during the lunch, during the breakfast, asking child what he did during the day, at school, at the nursery school, at whatever she is doing. And then asking for music or instrument practice. So to begin with, you know that the globalization, mobility of populations change our social interactions. That's why Stephen Fortorek, he is talking about super diversity, and then effective language learning, and also our social relations are transformed with new technologies and changes in language behavior, influence of the conceptualization of language teaching. And for parents, as you are teacher, but you are also parents. And what you want to do for your children, for your child, purpose of giving chance to grow up with more than one language. And in many times, this language is English or Chinese or German. And for politics, giving a chance to learn more than one language in order to be competitive in the world. And nowadays, if you have, for instance, French as a mother tongue, first language, as linguists, we don't like mother tongue, it's first language, L1. And you have L1 French. And then, all over the world, everybody has L2 English, but you have to be distinguished from one who has only 2 languages. And then you have to have a third language, fourth language, and then, for instance, you are competitive in the world. Only 2 languages, it's not enough. So there are some myths and stereotypes about bilingualism. Just quickly, you know that bilingualism is an exception, the standard monolingualism. When we look at the number of the monolinguals and the bilinguals, it doesn't matter. A child who starts too early to learn a second language, he or she will not become bilingual. And sometimes some advisors, they give that 3 years, 5 years, 12 years is better. No, at the beginning, at the nurse, since birth, all children has the capacity to start to learn languages. And it is difficult for a child to learn two languages at the same time, and there will be delay in its development. This is really myths about bilingualism, and his intelligence decreases. Oh my God. Also, and then bilingual children who are less exposed to each language will never be proficient in both languages, and we show his lexicon and seeing that, look at this guy, he has this lexicon compared to monolinguals. But when you are looking at the conceptual number of vocabulary, the bilinguals, they have more vocabulary or more lexicon than the monolinguals. It's better to learn one language properly first, and then we can introduce the second language. Look at Bella, 8 languages at 44 years old. A real bilingual never mixed languages. You know, the argument of mixing was used during centuries, saying that a bilingual child should not mix languages. Mixing languages is equivalent of competencies. You can't mix, in order to be able to mix, you need to have competencies in both languages, otherwise you can't mix. That's why it's also a myth. The mix of languages is bad for child's development. So, okay, just after this introduction, first part, I will just quickly say that one person in the world, during 1 century, all researchers, they tried to demonstrate that bilingualism leads to mental confusion, incomplete acquisition of the mainstream language, identity conflicts in the form of split loyalties, intellectual incapacity, and negative effects on cognitive development. These were really many researchers over the world during 1 century. And one of these researchers was Professor Simon Lowry from Cambridge University. When you say Cambridge University, oh yes, he should be right. And what he said, 1890, if it were possible for a child or boy to live in 2 languages at once equally well, so much the worse for him. His intellectual and spiritual growth would not thereby be doubled, but halved. Unity of mind and of character would have great difficulty in asserting in such circumstances. And during 1 century, all the researchers quoted Professor Lowry saying, oh, he is a great professor at Cambridge University and he should write. And really, and one of these, just showing you research, one of this research from David Shear and his colleagues, in order to show that bilingualism is an handicap. Bilingualism is a disease, an illness. And, 1,400 Welsh English bilinguals studied comparison of bilinguals and with monolinguals. And at this time, we are at the, after the First World War. And what they used the IQ test. And you will imagine in the rural environment of Welsh English bilinguals, they have no school at this time. The only English they will heard will be at the church, and the parents will speak Welsh. And then what they did, they had the results of IQ meet. So in order to, in fact, they forget the urban bilinguals and monolinguals, and they showed only the rural monolinguals, saying that, look at this, there is 10 points difference between the monolinguals and the bilinguals. So bilingualism is really an handicap. They are really intelligent. And okay. So definitions of bilingualism. There are many definitions, and I will just show you some. When we are in France, what we do, le petit Robert first, or le petit Larousse second, or vice versa. So le petit Robert, the use of the language in an individual relation. Okay. there are some regions or there are some people, for instance in Switzerland, you have monolinguals and bilinguals, but you have the country. The bilingual is one who speaks perfectly, possesses two languages. Okay, perfectly. For linguists, perfect is not an available word. It doesn't exist. Nobody is perfect in the world. And the Laos, situation of an individual speaking two different languages. Okay. Individual bilingualism. Situation of a community where two languages are used concurrently. Okay. They are a little bit aware. They say, okay, we will take care. And then the popular conception. I asked one of my master degree students to do his research about bilingualism, and he went in the streets of Rouen and asked people, what is bilingualism for you? And the answer mainly responded, to be bilingual is to speak two languages perfectly. And in Rouen, people learn very well Le Petit Robert. So, what do the linguists think? We have three conceptions. We have first, Bloomfeld's conception. He defined bilingualism as a native-like control of two languages. So we call this conception additionist maximalist. If you will be considered as bilingual, you should have maximum competencies in both languages. Otherwise, you won't be considered as bilingual. We have also Yves Lebrun from Canada, who have used several languages since childhood with equal ease. So there are many researchers. This strict view of bilingualism limits the number of individuals and groups that could be classified as bilingual. And we have the other side, integrative minimalist conception from Ulrich Uriel Weinreich. He says, the practice of alternatively using two languages without perfect, you've seen here. And then McNamara, he added, someone who has minimal skill in one of the four language skills, namely to understand, speak, read, and write. You know that in many African languages they don't have the writing system, so they can also speak. Okay, and then we can multiply the authors and the researchers and all define the bilingualism in their view. So I know he worked a lot for the Norwegian migrants in the United States. He's very famous for this study, and he also said bilingual can produce complete, meaningful sentences in the other language. Okay, this one is in Italian, Renzo Titone. The individual's capacity to speak a second language while following the concept and structures of the language rather than paraphrasing. Because adults, we are paraphrasing, and the child knows. And he said we shouldn't paraphrase our mother tongue. And you recognize him, it's a little bit small. He's a French, well-known linguist. And when we have a linguistic problem in France, he is at the TF1 20h. Yes, you're right, 2 points for you. Good. So Claude Agege, what he said, he's a good, he read many books about bilingualism, and he said, yes, I have to write also a book about bilingualism. And what he did, being bilingual implies that, yeah, that can speak, understand, and read, write two languages with the same ease. So you can see where we will place him. These are on the one hand firm formulation, on the other hand compact expression. If you don't know how to say essuyer un échec in English, you won't be considered bilingual. Essuyer un échec. Okay. Ou mort de la poussière. If you don't know how to say in English mort de la poussière, according to Agege, you won't be considered as bilingual. When I asked this my student at the university, nobody knows mort de la poussière, so they are monolingual. Okay. And the last conception, we will say, one of the books I advise you to read, François Grosjean and other colleagues from Switzerland, he was the first who criticized native-like control, command of the two languages. So for him, we have the definition here. A bilingual is a person who regularly uses two languages in everyday life, as Uriel Weinreich said before, and not who has a similar and perfect command of the both languages. Okay, skip the rest. And then I try to make all these conceptions together there. Minimalist. So maximalist, this is an idealist, an ideal person. Integrative and holistic functional, they are the same, they are very close, because they say when you are using a language in your everyday life, you'll be considered as bilingual. Okay, so there are nowadays many other definitions. I will skip them because of time. So what is important here, that there is many theorists are now beginning to be bilingualism as a spectrum or continuum of bilingualism that runs from the relatively monolingual language learner to higher, highly proficient bilingual speakers who function at high levels in both languages. And living in two languages and not having access to or need to use two or more languages at home and at school with the same perfect. So we are here, for instance, I can be in a monolingual mode because, for instance, in France when I teach, I'm in a monolingual mode because the students are French. So I'm in, but when I go home with my wife and children, we are in a bilingual mode, because we begin in French and then we continue in Turkish and then we continue in English, and we are sharing mixing languages, and then I'm in a bilingual or multilingual mode. And this is, you can be placed in everyday life with your interlocutors in this line you see here. And there are many typologies. There are books to see this, but it's very small. Just quickly, everything is okay? Yes, you are following it so fast? A little bit fast? Okay, I will go too slowly now. Okay, what the typologist says, we can take the age of exposure. And then we have different types of bilinguals. Simultaneous bilingualism is when the child learn or acquire both languages from birth to age of 3. This is simultaneous. And then you have sequential bilingualism from birth from 3 to 6. For instance, when the child arrives at nursery school, école maternelle, he has his own language, and then he learns the second language. We will say sequential bilingualism. You see, and in France, many migrant children, for instance, élèves allophones, and we say that they are successive sequential bilinguals, because they have already their own language, and then they will have the second language at the nursery school. And then, look at this, late bilingualism. Late, we use the term late. It's too late. 6, 7 to 10, 11. And then you can have also teenage or school bilingualism to acquire between 11 and 16, 17. And the particularity of this bilingualism is that if you learn the language after 10, 11, you will speak the other language with your own language accent. This is what we call crible phonological filter. And for instance, when I met a Turkish man in France, I straight away know if he learned French before 11 or after 11. It's really a function. This is the particular thing of teenage bilingualism. And then we have also adult bilingualism. You can learn, sure, the other language, there is no problem, but you should have very many sacrifice and you should do many efforts. But it is possible. And I give an example of, I don't know if you heard about him, he is a Greek origin writer in France, Vasilis Alexakis. Never heard about him? It's the first time. So I will make joke with him, Vasilis Alexakis, pour les deux brebis. Okay. Les mots étrangers. He is one of his book, and he has written many books in French, and he came in France at the age of 18, and he had no French, and now he is a writer publishing in French. Okay, this is just some long things, I just summarized here. From acquisition, informally, spontaneously, intuitively, and verbal dimension is secondary to learning more formally, metalinguistic place of writing and verbal dimension is extra. And the second one is the types of bilingual acquisition in childhood with the practices at home. What the parents are practicing at home. So the first type, one person, one language, very well known all over the world. And you have a French father, he met an American girl, and then they marry, and then they went to live in France, and what they do, they are both speaking their own language to the child, L1, L2, mother American English, and father French. We have the second situation, our French guy, he is French, he met the American girl, L2, and then they went to France. And what are they doing? They are using the language who is not in the environment. They are choosing to speak only English because they know that at school and in the environment there will be French. So this is the second case, L2, L2 at home. That one we say one language at home, one language outside home. The third one, this is my case, L1. I'm Turkish, my wife is Turkish, we are in France, I grew up in France. And then what we are doing, it worked with my older son, but after long. Then we decided to speak to him only Turkish till nursery school, école maternelle. And when he began école maternelle, he has no word in French, he cried, oh, I'm very different from the others. No, you're not different. You need patience. Okay. The first one, our French man meeting his English American wife in the Netherlands, and they are living in the Netherlands, and what they do, they speak all their own languages, and then they let the environment, the L3, and we have trilingualism. And then the first one, it's a little bit the worst of the types. For instance, I'm Turkish, my wife is Turkish, we are in France, and I decide to speak to my son or my child in French. Even if my French is not my mother tongue or my L1. This is really the bad case if you don't have the competencies in these languages. It works if you are able to speak to him in French or in the other languages. And for instance, for the Maghrebian background children, people in France, they are from Maghrebian background. They tried their Arabic background, and they don't, because the teachers advised them to speak French, and they tried to transmit French. But no, continue to transmit your own language, Arabic. And the last one. I love this one. So the L1, L2, I'm bilingual, my wife is bilingual, we are in a bilingual environment, and then what we are doing, we are sharing, mixing, code switching, and then this is mixed languages. I call this type peace and law strategy. This is actually, yes, I was yesterday there. Okay, the consequences for this, my colleague Hangover, she tried to evaluate the consequences, and you can see that speaking one language at home and the other language outside home makes the child bilingual. Otherwise, he will lose his first language. So we can continue. There are four bilinguals, they did bilinguals, but I don't have time. I will just go quickly how to objectively evaluate bilingualism. We are many tests, and this is well known. I don't what we can test on bilinguals. It's not important. Just assessing bilingual individuals' language proficiency in each or two or more languages as adequately as possible, scientifically. So, and the question is, what is the norm? Which norm I should show? You know that there are variations also with monolinguals. So, That's why we should be we should take care about the evaluating bilinguals. That's why we will fall in the error of during 1 century saying that bilingualism is an handicap. So there are rating scales, flexibility tests, fluency tests, dominance tests, and for instance, you can rating scales. You ask the person, do you know how to say the day of the week in English, for instance? And he said yes, 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 but you don't know if really he knows or not. This is the problem of rating scales. And then, for instance, picture naming, this word used many times, word completion, oral reading, or following instruction, how to go from the San Francisco Center to the airport, and tell me how to. And then this is also done in many tests. So, this was used in many, many languages. This is a story without the word, textless. And then from Arabic, it was used and really worked in more than 30 languages in the world. It gives the chance to child to tell the story, and then you can look his vocabulary, his pronunciation, his writing capacity, or the verbal system, or the connectors, everything you can check with this method. But it's not the only one. You have the bird stories, you have the boy stories, and there are many, many stories. Okay, just some findings. Before I will show the bilingual brain. Although nowadays it's very, the works are very recent, and we have many results now. And then, the bilingual brain differs from that of monolinguals. Which part of the brain of a bilingual activates during L1 and L2? And there are many experiments from Kiel and his colleagues at the United Kingdom, but there are also in France, in Paris Saint-Thierry, one of my colleagues at Paris Saint-Descartes, early, late bilinguals and prediction. Let's just look at the images. And here, what you can see, we are in early bilingualism. You remember what was early bilingualism? Which ages early bilingualism? From birth to 6 or 7. Early bilingualism. Don't forget that we have 2 types of early bilingualism: simultaneous bilingualism and sequential bilingualism. But both are early bilingualism. After 6 7, we speak about late bilingualism. So here, if you look this picture, you will see that both languages, L1 and L2, they have common underlying proficiency, the same zone activated for both languages. But when you look at the late bilingual brain, you will see here, then there are 2 different zones in the brain. And then it means that both languages are functioning differently in the brain. So the results confirm that the importance of age of acquisition for the functional specialization and language in the brain. And I will show you just after the study of the European Union about this. But look at these 3 languages, L1, L2, and L2 before 3 years old. You see that there is only one space in the brain. And 3 languages after 10 years old, and you see that the spaces are different. And when we look, for instance, for adult bilingualism, look at here, English, French, 31 years old male, and then the both brain images, and the Korean English, English Korean, and Japanese English, English Spanish. You can see that for adult bilingualism, you have 2 different zones in the brain. That means that you will do sometimes double effort because, or not double effort, because that means that you have not profiting of your bilingualism. That's why it's important to begin very early. So we have also subtractive and additive bilinguals. Then this is really, we speak of subtractive when you are losing your L1 in order to concentrate only in your L2. L1, developing fully submersion in the majority language. For instance, you are here in the United States, you say, oh, French, forget it. I'm in the US and whatever you want. So negative social representations of language in play, it's not the case here. So you can develop also valued skills in two languages, then we speak about additive language. So I will skip these things. And what I will just present you, a study done in the early 70s by Tove Skutna-Pangas and Piotr Tukoma about Finnish migrant children in Sweden. You know that at this time Finland was a poor country, and Finnish people were going to work in Sweden. And then they studied the adolescents there, and then they observed that as bilinguals they confuse and mix, and they have unstable skills. And Skutna-Pangas, she called this semilinguals. It's a horrible word for me. I hate this word, and I put it here because it exists, unfortunately, because you can't call someone semilingual. What it means, semilingual, it means that you have half an hour. Who can be half an hour? And what monolingual person knows well all his own language? You can say, we have all varieties, we have all languages. I have been at the university, so I learned well French. But, for instance, I have been at the university, I have better Turkish, or I have better English, but my mom went never to school, she has her own Turkish. What I should say? I should say, oh, she is semilingual because she has limited language competences. It doesn't work linguistically, really. And then we have this, I have already said for the subtractive bilingual, there are many cases in all the world. And just what I wanted to say, at the early 80s, Tove Skutna-Pangas, she came back on this world, and you will see here what she will say. Oops, sorry, it's a little bit quick. I will do it slowly. Oh, I know preparing PPTs. It is a political and social concept rather than linguistic or scientific one. It was too late, because all over the world everybody used for migrant children the term semilingual. And concerning the Finnish migrant adolescent in Sweden, and this was really bad, because one time in a conference I met a colleague, she said, oh, the migrant children, they are all semilinguals. I said, semilinguals yourself. And she began to cry. Oh, you treated me semilingual. I treated you semilingual because you treated all the migrant children semilinguals. And I said, you know how this word came to the world? She said, no. And I said, don't use the word, then you don't know how it comes to life. I was a bit, okay, you understand me. So the first really relevant study on bilingualism was by, you know that Canada is doing a lot for bilingualism, and many researchers there, and at the beginning of the 60s they wanted to spread the French learning, and then they asked Wallace Colbert, he's an American, come back to Canada and study the bilingualism here. And he was the first showing that bilinguals has significantly higher scores than monolinguals, because he took all the precautions, neutralizing factor, age, sex, socioeconomic and sociocultural affiliation of families. Imagine when you compare what is not comparable, you will have, as they did at the beginning of the 1920s with the Welsh children in Great Britain, they compared what it was not comparable. So I will advise you, if you have time, to read this report. It exists in English and in French. Perhaps you already know it. Europublic.com. Study on the contribution of multilingualism in creativity. Étude sur la contribution du multilinguisme à la créativité. Et ça montre vraiment un certain nombre de recherches récentes sur les bienfaits du bilinguisme. Ok, je vais juste assez rapidement parce que le temps passe et je voudrais aussi que par la suite on puisse échanger tous ensemble. So, when there are many publications, papers now showing that there is a relationship between multilingualism and creativity, more than 900. And the synthesis of this researchers is the paper, the creativity that results from the knowledge of more than one language. So if we hypothesis about the relationship between multilingualism and creativity, better successful for the information, more varied organizational thought, more varied perception of the world, increased potential for creativity. So Ofelia Garcia and Hugo Bacon-Spelman. So the problem-solving mind, the interpretation of the information as well as the solution of problems, and bilingual seems better at solving cognitively complex problems. I will show some examples just after. Creative thinking, processing capacity of more efficient information. Imagine a maximum of interesting and unusual use of a brick. When we asked to a monolingual child, he said it is used for building, to build a house or the roof of the house. And when you ask to a bilingual child, he gives many uses. And he said, for instance, I can beat another child, I can put it under the table. No, it's not the first answer. The first answer that I can put it under the table in order to make equilibrated the table, something like this. And there are many uses. And better I find not the correct answer, but different possible correct answers. And in the early 70s, you know that during 1 century, we wanted to, they showed and then they demonstrated that bilingualism was an handicap. And at the beginning of the 70s, we wanted to show the reverse. And what we did, some tests, and from one of these tests is the embedded figures test. I don't know if you know this. It is said that the bilinguals are more efficient in reproducing this. For instance, you have to find the second in the other one, this one. You see that? You should. You have seen in the other one. Yes, I will give you the answer. Okay. Oh, you haven't seen. Okay, just check again. You have seen that. You have this? And the bilingual child should find this figure in the other one. Look at this. Oh, yes. So, Hélène Bialystok, she studied and she's doing a lot for bilingualism in Canada and embedded figure test. And she wanted to know if it is really, it makes difference between bilinguals and monolinguals. And she did the same study with this sort of pictures. You see here? Yes? Okay. And here? Oops. Okay. And the difference between bilinguals and monolinguals? It will be some differences or not differences? You are waiting for the results. And the results are no differences between bilinguals and monolinguals. Equal. So she said, oh, it should be a difference between bilinguals and monolinguals. There is something worse in this study. And then with her team, because she has a great team in Toronto University, and she tried to do another test with ambiguous figure reversals. These are this. You see that in both pictures you should see two things. Just test them. You are okay? Everybody is bilingual? You straight away find the second image. So she gave points when you spontaneously identify those pictures, or one pictures, otherwise no pictures, and then no ID. And then she helped when it was a difficult one, like this. You see? Oops. Yes, okay. And The results. What are the results? You are waiting for the results. There is a big and huge difference between Ratzman, Waze face, and saxophone with woman. And not with duck and rabbit. That means that you can see the difference between the bilinguals and the monolinguals, all differences. And Alain Bialystok explains this, that the ability to deal with multiple tasks at the same time seems to be better developed among bilinguals. No doubt, thanks to the increased ability to control signals by rejecting irrelevant information. In order to see that it is a duck, I should switch off in my mind the duck, and to switch on rabbit. You see, and as every day in bilingual's brain, there is flexible gymnastics and brain that they are more efficient. So we have executive functions like this, and okay. Oh, it should be very small. Okay, I will. You perhaps know this test, stroke task. You see this, but you should say the color of the print. It's right, okay? Blue, green. Okay. Okay, so Alain Bialystok did this, the congruent and the incongruent, and the difference between the young bilinguals and old bilinguals, and there is a difference between bilinguals and monolinguals in recognizing this in this test. So, the flexible mind, I will switch because of time. There are many studies, and I really advise you to read the report, the European report. They explain in details these things. For instance, Alain Bialystok and others, they asked, apples grow on noses. This is a sentence. You follow me? Apple grows on noses. And she asked to monolingual children, can we say that? And what was the answer of monolinguals? Mainly, apples grow on noses. They said, no, can't say that, it's not English. And then she asked bilinguals, can we say, apples grow on noses? What was their answer? They said that semantically it is not correct, but syntactically it is correct. You will see the difference between a bilingual child and a monolingual child. The learning mind, the short-term memory, the brain to hold the information along enough to allow reflection. Learning is the ability not to add information to what one already knows, but to build new knowledge. You already did many things here. I will switch because of time, and I will let you. If we say what are the cognitive benefits, metalinguistic competencies, greater opportunities for communication, and divergent cognitive style, creative, and processing capacity of more efficient information, and then cultural competencies enrich motivation to learn other languages. And if we show communicative advantages, greater opportunities for communication, skills of reading and writing in two languages or more languages, cultural, multicultural experiences to linguistic words, greater tolerance to less racism, cognitive creativity, sensitivity to communication, we already seen this before. And then personal and social higher self-esteem. It's very important. Self-confidence in terms of identity, communication skills in changing social structures, etc., etc. And we have better understanding the values of a different system, as I already said. And we have curriculum improving comprehension and reading process, learning a third language easier to be able to capture the nuances of different language structures, etc. And then financial, of course. He's a fine, we can say in English, forgive my Google translation sometimes, but you know my philosophy in life. Never explain, never complain, be yourself. Thank you, Santa Google. We say in English, Santa Google? No, what we say? Wait. San Google.
Google Translate.
No, what we say, San Google in English? Okay. Forgive my joke. Okay, no. I will just give a little joke for you. You know what Christine already knows this joke. You know what the English says? They said, don't worry, be happy. Christine, where are you? You know the answer. And then, do you know what the German says? So, the English says, don't worry, be happy. And the German says, don't marry, be happy. Okay, this is the German way of life. Okay, now, what happens at school? Okay, let's come to the school. I will there are 4 French colleagues. I recommend you, suggest you, 2 papers from Jim Cummins. 2011 de l'importance des données de la recherche empirique pour les politiques éducatives en dehors des apprenants en difficulté. Et en 2014, l'éducation bilingue, qu'avons-nous appris de 50 ans de recherche. Vraiment 2 études, 2 articles très synthétiques qui donnent une idée de des théories de Jim Cummins. Bien sûr, for our English colleagues, he also published many books and papers in English, and he's not francophone, you know. His papers are translated into French, and he's anglophone. So he's wondering, is being bilingual an asset in education, or it is a problem? So, should we promote additive bilingualism, providing people the opportunity to use L1 in their learning, recognizing and valuing languages they speak and write outside of school? Should we regard bilingualism as transitional, and sometimes that is not really relevant for mainstream schooling? So, language versus cognitive development. So, he tried to look what happens in the brain before the image of brains are nowadays. At the early 70s, he developed he said there is 2 different theories. One is a sub-model, 2 models. A sub-model is separate underlying proficiency. This is the case, if you have followed me just before, for adolescents or teenage or adult bilingualism. You know, you have 2 areas in the brain for your both languages. So it proposes that 2 languages in the brain operate separately without any transfer, and there is a restricted amount of room for languages. And he was in the research developing CUP, Common Underlying Proficiency. CUP model proposes that 2 languages do not function separately, but they operate through the same central processing system. And I tried to figure out this model, and this is linguistic skills and cognitive skills. You have, it should be like this. You have your L1, you have your pronunciation, your vocabulary, your grammar, but you can have in both languages some common facts in grammar, in vocabulary. We know that cognate words, for instance, the words are the same in both languages. We call them cognate words, and these are in the brain. And pronunciation could be different from one language to another, but you have also in the CUP the semantic meaning and function. You know how to function the language, and you know how to analyze this, how to synthesize, and how to evaluate. Then you have knowledge, comprehension, and application. This is really Jim Cummins' common underlying proficiency. If you He also called this dual iceberg hypothesis or central operating system. Okay, we have many names for this. And then if you, multilingualism is possible because people have the mental capacity to store two or more languages easily. The language the child is using in the classroom needs to be well developed to be able to process the cognitive challenges of the classroom. And if children are made to operate in an insufficiently developed second language, the system will not function properly. This is the theory of Jim Cummins. And one or both languages are not functioning fully, cognitive functioning and academic performance may be negatively affected. And he gave for this the name of threshold theory. I'm sure you already heard about this theory. And this is this one. You can have limited bilingualism, low level in both languages, maybe balanced or dominant. Low level of in both languages, for instance, you haven't been to school, you just learned language, and for some reasons, factors, you have limited bilingualism. And for Jim Cummins' theory, for the cognitive effects, it could be negative. In the early 70s, what Tove Skunta Kangas called semilinguals, it was limited bilingualism here. And it is replaced nowadays by limited bilingualism. For X reasons, I can have less competence in one language. It's not saying that I'm not able to communicate in these languages. That's why we should be careful with this limited bilingualism. Partial bilingualism, native-like level in one of the language. Native-like, yeah, you remember that we are not in a maximalist conception, but you are better in one than the other. And then in that case, it is often the case of bilingual when they arrive. For instance, the Italian migrants, and when they came to the United States, what they did, they forget Italian in order to integrate the community, and they learn English, and this is the partial bilingualism, either positive or negative cognitive effects. And the proficient bilingualism, in both languages, and we have positive effects. And then Colin Baker showed this with three-story building. First, lower floor limited bilinguals, middle floor less balanced or equilibrated bilinguals, and top floor balanced or equilibrated bilinguals. Okay, in developmental interdependence hypothesis, this is the fact that there is a interdependence between languages. That child's second language competences is partly dependent on the level of competence already achieved in the first language, as we've seen with the threshold theory. The more developed the first language, the easier it will be to develop the second language. And then there are researchers, and then the Cummins developed this as academic language and everyday language. So this is like this. You can see basic interpersonal communicative skill. In everyday life, I need a language, so I will communicate with my basic interpersonal communicative skills. I don't know to read Hegel, Kant, Spinoza, but I can communicate, no problem, with language. And then situation in which context do not require cognitive effort. Speaking for Cummins takes place in 6 months to 2 years. For a child, for instance, when he begins to learn a language, it should be around, we say, 4 to 6 months to 2 years. But at the other side, we have the cognitive academic language proficiency called, and then this is mainly writing and brought into play in decontextualized situations with cognitive requirement. This, we know that at school in France, for instance, when there is a school failure, it is due to the fact that the school language and the home language are, the distance between most languages are very huge. And then in that case, when you don't have the school language, it could have problems at school. Well, this is otherwise how Cummins said about this. And then we can transfer it for instance, in your classroom, the activities, cognitive demanding activity, cognitive undemanding activity, or context reduced, context embedded. For instance, if you know that when we learn language, we begin with A1 level. This is saluer quelqu'un. My name is Richard. Hello, Richard. Nice to meet you. Goodbye. So this is cognitive and demanding and context embedded. Because I'm in a context, I meet someone and I learn the language. Parler de la pluie et du beau temps. You look the weather. If it's sunny, it's funny, it's shiny, whatever you want. Or doing participer à un jeu de rôle, expliquer et argumenter dans le cadre d'un débat. If it's a debate, it has cognitive demanding, and it could be because of the thema, context embedded. And the other one, you can have context reduced. For instance, you can be able to, all the children, and I've seen in the last week in the classrooms, réciter un refrain, réciter une poésie, without understanding the words. It could be, it's easy. And then for child, more than for adult, raconter un conte de fées, tell a story, rédiger un bulletin d'information, and rédaction d'un essai. So writing an essay is a little bit more cognitive demanding activity and reduced context, because you don't have the context in order to give your opinion. So there are other examples. I will give this, buying popcorn. Buying popcorn, this is American. Buying popcorn. This is cognitive and demanding and context embedded. You're okay? Yes? Everybody agrees with this? Buying popcorn. But it's a little bit different here because you have many different types of popcorn, and it's a bit difficult. In France, it won't be a problem, but in the US, it's a little bit problem. Okay. You have other situations. Okay. So, Big San Calp, you have seen, I hope you understand, and okay. So, interdependence hypothesis. So, we've seen that significant positive relationship exists between the development of academic skills in L1 and L2, and all of these reverse properties. And you've seen that with the common underlying proficiency, we can share knowledges in one common across era, across languages. The common underlying competence makes it possible to transfer concepts, reading, writing skills, learning strategies from one language to another. I always say, when you learn to a child to write with a pen or pencil, you won't learn him again how to take a pen and write. He already knows. This is the same with reading concepts and writing skills. And for Cummins, there are 5 types of interlanguage transference. For instance, concept. When you know photosynthesis in one language, you can transfer it to the other language because you already know what it means in one language. Metacognitive and metalinguistic strategies, vocabulary acquisition strategies, for instance, pragmatic dimensions of the language, accepting to take risk when communicating in L2. This is the child, the bilingual child. We said in bilingualism, he swim or he sink. He said, oh, it's a mistake, is it a good pronunciation, is it the right word? The adults ask many questions. He said, oh, is it the right pronunciation, is it the right word? And then the other person changed the theme of the conversation. This is the big difference between children and adults. Specific linguistic knowledge, knowing the meaning of photosynthesis, for instance, what it means, photosynthesis, and then phonological awareness also. So the most effective bilingual programs are those aimed at bilingualism and biliteracy. Biliteracy in French. Program. The child is. You should give him the chance, as it is the case in San Francisco Lycée, French Lycée here. Interdependence bilingual education for students from indigenous or minority groups is in many situations more effective in developing literacy skills in L2 than L2 monolingual education. there is no evidence that bilingual education compromises academic achievement in English or in French, whether for minority language students, for students receiving instruction in their native language, or for those enrolled in immersion program in French. School failure among students from dominated groups results from multiple factors that depend on the social context. And then he advises what access to knowledge scaffolding from Jérôme Brunner. You already heard about this. How using visuals, and I've seen in the classrooms here, by demonstrating, for instance, photosynthesis. How you can explain to a child, you will demonstrate keeping a plant in a dark room, etc., etc. By emphasizing some points or explaining them with gestures. Do not avoid gestures. It's very important for children. And then there are no parents who begin to speak with gestures to their baby. Baby talk, I think the name of this model, it is developed well in the United States, and it came to France now. It's à la mode to begin to speak with gestures to your baby, with your baby, and by setting up interactive and collaborative tasks, explaining some words, difficult words or linguistic structures, and activate previous experiences built along. You already know this. New knowledges are built on foundation of prior knowledges. Okay, this is well known. And then the concept, vocabulary, I already said, enrichment of language skills, optimize access to written text and behavioral arrangement for literacy. Look at this. OCDE 2004. The degree to which a learner is engaged in reading has a stronger predictive value for his literacy performance than his socio-economical background. And in 2010, the positive attitude towards reading can foster the acquisition of high reading skills. Okay? Affirming learners and identities. Do not hesitate. The complexity reality of identity is not generally taken into account. For instance, I will for the French context. Learners of Euro-European in the United States, this is the United States statistics. Learners of Euro-American origin are congratulated or encouraged more than their peers of Mexican origins. 36% more. In the classrooms, the contributions of the former are repeated or developed more than those of the latter. 40%. I won't speak racism, I won't say there are segregation, but these are statistics. Promoting multilingualism, language of origin, it is not part of the problem. It is the solution. So it's not, there is a mistake here. So just, I have 13 minutes left, and I will try to give you some ideas about bilingual child language acquisition. So this is the schema for bilingual child language acquisition from birth to 3 years old, with the babbling, first gestures, first words, lexical increasing, combination of words, etc., etc. And what we ask, what happens with a bilingual child? And for bilingual child, so before this, importance of social effect on language acquisition, individual difference, it's very important. You know that, you are a teacher. When you have 25 pupils in your classroom, you have 25 individualities. There are huge differences between children. You know that, for instance, we measured the lexicon from one high SES child. He has around 40,000 words or elements of words at the age of 6. And do you know, for a child with low SES background, only 2,000. Recent studies show a slow development of receptive, I said, productive vocabulary for children belonging to the low SES. Shared reading activity seem to differentiate between low SES, as we've seen with OCDE report and high SES families. And then for the child language, how it began. Now you have two languages, L1 and L2. First stage, this is called the Ratashnavalon unitary language system. They developed that, they saying that when the child begins simultaneously both languages, he is not aware of the fact that he is acquiring, speaking, or using two languages. That's why we call this model the unitary language system. So, the first stage, single lexicon system. Children are using words belonging to both languages. They do not use equivalents in both languages. They don't have knowledge of language. For instance, in this study, the mother show the glasses to the baby, and baby learned with his father how to say in German. And when the mother show it in Italian, and the case. They are around 2.5 years old, and then the baby, the girl in this case, has known the name of Brille in German because her father has Brille, so glasses. But when the mother shows glasses, he is not able to say Brille. You understand? It's only one word and for the situation. So they don't have knowledge of the two languages. This is the hypothesis. The second stage, they are distinguishing the lexicon, but they're using the same grammatical rules. And the third stage, they are now aware of lexicon and syntax in both languages. This was the, if you follow, the unitary language system hypothesis. This is criticized all over the world, many papers, many communications, many, they tried to check the study, looking the data, if the authors, they didn't mistake somewhere. And then the other side, hypothesis of differentiated language system, Jürgen Meisel and Annick Dehoever, they developed early development of specific feature of each language. That it means that at the early stage, the bilingual child is able to simultaneously develop the lexicon and grammatical structure in each of his two languages. And they separate, they called it separate development hypothesis, and they followed 7 French-German bilingual children, and many children. These are, they suggest that children growing up with two languages simultaneously acquire each of their two languages like monolingual children. And this is the team of Jürgen Meisel. He has his research lab in Hamburg University, and they followed from birth to age of 5. Caroline, Christophe, François, Ivar, Kate, Manuela, Pascal, Pierre, Peru, etc., etc. And then it was against Volterra and Teschner's hypothesis. And the last one is the interdependence hypothesis from Fred Genesee, also a Canadian, and Jonah Paradis. And then they said that they define interdependent development as the systemic influence of the grammar of one language on the grammar of the other language during acquisition, causing differences in the bilingual patterns or rates of development in comparison with the monolinguals. For instance, first they will say that if two languages sharing, don't read what it is, if two languages have common things in grammar, then it will accelerate the process of acquisition. For instance, if you have, I don't know, for instance, if you have the pronouns obligatory in French, if in the other language it is obligatory, then it will accelerate. But if it is not the case, for instance, if we compare French with Spanish, then in Spanish it is not obligatory as in Italian or in Arabic. And then if the child lives in Spain, for instance, bilingual French-Spanish child live in Spain, what he will do, he will mainly skip the pronouns in French because of he is in the Spanish environment, and in Spain they don't use pronouns. You are following me? Yeah? And then if the child now lives in France, what he will do in Spanish, he will have the habitude to add pronouns when speaking Spanish. This is acceleration or the other side. Okay, this accelerate structural properties. Okay, you can give many, and it could be also some transfer from. If you, for instance, for example, generally speaking, verbal negatives in English precede the lexical verb. I do not like raspberries. Is it okay? But follows in the French, je n'aime pas les framboises. If English-French bilingual children were shown to place negatives after lexical verbs in English and French, this could constitute evidence for transfer and thus interdependent linguistic development. It could be that in the first stage that the child copied the French or the English form in the other language. So, okay, the language develops in the interaction styles in the family. If you speak a lot, you are taking care of the child, you're reading activities, sharing activities, according to the cultural practices and the social background, quantity of L2, the more the child receives, the more he produces, as we've seen with Bella. Insufficient contribution of L2, limited linguistic production. So, cognitive linguistic factors, we have emotional and self-esteem, I've shown before, but the child is neither a sponge nor a machine to learn the language, but a social being, a member of a social group, families, school friends. He interiorizes the values, fails, attitudes prevailing around him, and so builds his linguistic, cultural, and social identity. Okay, so there are some roles of the parents I will skip, and just showing you if we should mix or not languages. Just one case, and after I will compute. You know, one parent, one language. We called it in English, no, in English is OPOL, one language, one parent. In French, UPUL, une langue, une personne. This is called like this, UPUL. So we have a German-French family. They have two boys, and Jens builds a garage with his Lego cubes. Her mother has to help him. Olivier, his brother, plays next to them. Donne-moi encore quelques Lego pour faire le toit. Toi, tu peux faire la porte, si tu peux pas, ça casse tout le temps. Nein, das geht doch nicht kaputt. Du musst hier verstellen. So guck mal. Et il montre à son frère, il shows to his brother. Now, with the mother, they speak French, and together they are speaking German. And then, ich kann nicht, das ist so schwer. Tu peux pas, Jens, hein? Mais il faut pas pleurer comme ça. Du sollst nicht weinen, Jens. When the children speak German to their mother, and then just one case I will give you. For instance, when the children are furious with their mother, they express their anger in German. Du Pinkopf. Mama ist doof, Mama ist doof. They are not saying Mama. And then, ja, Mama ist doof. Vous avez fini de faire des bêtises, arrêtez plutôt de faire sauter de l'eau partout. Nein, wir hören nicht auf. Et la mère, je ne comprends pas. Si tu as quelque chose à dire, dis-le en français. You know, this is the, there are some other examples, and I will skip them. There are many examples, and what I would say that mixing languages is really a sign of competences. In families where one language principle is applied, the children adopt a normative attitude and refuse completely. On the other hand, in the situations where adult mixing ceases languages, children tend to do the same. But it's not a problem. Okay, oops. This is another example with the family. Okay, come on. Ok. Okay. You will read all this at your home. Okay. I wanted to we don't have now time. That's why. Oops. Oops. I don't know what happened. We can go to the last. Someone can help me, please? Please help. Okay. So, to conclude, it's time to conclude. It's 10:30. Is it okay? I'm in time? Okay. So, the best way to develop balanced or equilibrated bilingualism is to be confronted with the other language at very early age. Individual bilingual children proficiencies are linked to language socialization patterns in the home and in the environment where they live. Children learn more than one language when the right input conditions are respected, and we should be able to create such conditions in order to give any child such a chance. And challenges for bilingualism for children feeling the need to use the second language or the third language, wanting to enter into the language. For parents, maintaining the motivation of the child, giving a sense to the language, accepting a long-term commitment, arming oneself with patience. Parents. For teachers, fighting preconceived, stereotyped myths, ideas, motivating the children, getting, in linguistics materials. And this is, thank you very much. Je suis sincèrement désolé, ça a été un peu rapide, je le pense, et vous le pensez aussi, comme moi. Mais donc vous aurez à votre disposition les diapos. Par ailleurs, j'ai essayé de synthétiser ce qui devait être transmis. J'espère que ça n'a pas été trop rapide et nous pourrons, vu que nous avons presque 1h30, échanger. Et j'attends vos réactions, vos questions, vos remarques, suggestions éventuellement. Voilà. We can now exchange. Je vous ai assourdi. Oh my God. You said many things to keep in mind. No questions? Oh, we have one. Thank you. Oh, the courageous one.
Est-ce qu'il y a eu des études de fait selon les langages? Parce que il y a des langages qui sont similaires, il y en a qui sont différents.
Les langues?
Les langues, je veux dire.
J'ai pas compris la question. Est-ce qu'il y a
eu des études de fait selon les différents langues?
Ah oui. En fait, il y a, à travers maintenant, depuis les années 70, comme je l'ai dit, il y a vraiment beaucoup d'études au monde. Et les langues les plus diverses, les plus variées, les plus éloignées, pour essayer de montrer que justement, en fait l'important c'est quoi? Pendant longtemps, on a beaucoup travaillé sur l'acquisition monolingue de l'enfant. C'est-à-dire qu'on sait maintenant ce qui se passe à 4 mois, à 5 mois, etc. Mais on le savait peu pour l'enfant bilingue, et donc depuis les années 70, on s'est intéressé, à partir des théories à l'acquisition du langage chez l'enfant monolingue, à ce qui se passe chez l'enfant bilingue. Et donc, on va pouvoir trouver ce qui est universel et ce qui est spécifique à une langue. Et par exemple, je vais vous donner une différence entre deux langues différentes. Vous avez l'ordre des constituants, c'est-à-dire le sujet, le verbe et l'objet, ou sujet, objet, verbe. Vous avez des langues donc qui mettent le verbe à la fin. Eh bien, ceci a un impact sur l'acquisition des premiers mots chez le bébé. C'est-à-dire qu'un bébé français qui aura donc S, V, O, ben O c'est quoi? Souvent, ce sont des substantifs, des objets de la vie. Et donc, l'enfant, quand on regarde ses premiers mots, quand on lit les 50 premiers mots, ce sont souvent des substantifs. Alors que quand on va regarder un enfant, un bébé japonais, hongrois, finnois, turc, on va se rendre compte, en fait, en mesure où dans l'ordre des constituants, le verbe arrive en fin de phrase, en fait, ces bébés-là, souvent, dans leurs 50 premiers mots, ont des verbes et non pas des substantifs. Vous voyez, en fait, ce genre d'études, on les a multipliées. Ça existe vraiment, le chinois, même des langues très rares, on s'y intéresse pour essayer de faire le tour des langues, bien sûr. Vous avez un site web, je ne sais pas si vous connaissez, Childess, c'est développé par un Américain qui s'appelle Brian McWhinney, et il essaie de répertorier toutes les études, et avec des corpus, avec des résultats. Vraiment, c'est un site web, je vous le recommande, je vous le mettre ici. Je viens de m'en souvenir parce que vous m'avez posé la question. Ça s'appelle Childess, Childless, donc au pluriel, Childless, et donc qui va même vous donner des corpus pour voir un peu concrètement ce que on peut, en fait, vous pouvez travailler avec des corpus, vous pouvez regarder les résultats, etc., etc. Ça répond à votre question? En tout cas, vous avez vu que ça a un impact sur, puisque ça peut accélérer ou au contraire, ça peut retarder l'acquisition d'un phénomène langagier. Quand on a en fait un phénomène commun aux deux langues, on s'est rendu compte qu'en fait, il y avait un processus accélérateur. Et quand il y avait deux langues qui fonctionnent différemment pour X raisons, parce que voilà, les langues ne fonctionnent pas de la même manière, et donc, du coup, ça a un effet retardataire. Mais ça ne veut pas dire que l'enfant ne va pas apprendre au début de l'acquisition des deux langues. Il aura quelques petits soucis, mais en tout cas, très vite, il va séparer les choses, en tout cas, connaître que dans quelle langue ça se dit de la même manière, et dans son autre langue de telle autre. Oui, oui, allez-y.
Au départ, il y a un slide sur apprendre un instrument de musique. Est-ce que ça a un effet positif sur l'apprentissage de langue?
Alors, comment dire, jouer d'un instrument, ou en tout cas commencer à apprendre à jouer un instrument, ça joue beaucoup sur la mémoire. C'est pas sur le bilinguisme, c'est pas uniquement pour les enfants bilingues, mais aussi monolingues, bien sûr. Et vous avez aussi, par exemple, le jeu des échecs. Donc en fait, quand vous jouez avec l'enfant, j'avais une autre vidéo, j'aurais pu vous montrer, c'était avec un enfant qui est champion de France d'échecs à 6 ans. Et donc en fait, ce jeune, il est capable, il se trouve qu'il est bilingue. Et donc en fait, ça double favorise quand on a des activités de ce type qui font qu'on fait travailler la mémoire. Mais vous savez, le cerveau, c'est un organe comme les autres, mais il a besoin de s'entraîner. Il a besoin de s'entraîner, d'être utilisé, etc. Et ce qui se passe actuellement, je ne sais pas si vous avez entendu parler, il y a 2 semaines, en France, il y a un chercheur de l'INSERM qui a montré que, pour la première fois depuis longtemps, le QI des jeunes était en train de diminuer à cause des écrans et l'effet des écrans de plus en plus chez les jeunes. Et donc, qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Le cerveau, il ne réfléchit plus. Même, je vais vous faire un test là. Parmi vous, vous connaissez, dans le temps, il y a quelques vingtaines d'années, on connaissait par cœur au moins une dizaine, voire une quinzaine de numéros de téléphone. Moi là, vous me demandez le numéro de téléphone de ma femme, je ne le connais pas. Parce que j'ai mon téléphone qui me le donne. Et donc en fait, de plus en plus, notre cerveau, il n'est plus utilisé, il est en stand-by. Et donc, ceci, je n'ai pas encore lu l'ouvrage en question, dès que mon retour en France, je vais essayer de le lire pour voir les expériences qui ont été menées. Et apparemment, ça aurait un impact sur la diminution du QI. Et donc, moi je le constate auprès des étudiants, mais vraiment, d'année en année, quand j'ai commencé à enseigner à l'université, j'avais des étudiants motivés, j'avais des étudiants qui lisaient, j'avais des étudiants qui étaient intéressés. Et actuellement, ils sont tous là avec leur ordinateur ordinateur portable, et y compris parfois téléphone portable, et soi-disant qu'ils prennent des notes en amphi, je sais très bien qu'ils sont en train de chatter sur les réseaux sociaux entre eux. Et malheureusement, moi, il ne faut pas être pessimiste dans la vie, mais l'avenir m'inquiète.
Une dernière question peut-être?
Quelle est votre position concernant les enfants dans leur milieu on leur dit tout de suite, vous arrêtez de vous donner le langage, on reste sur...
Non, il ne faut jamais conseiller à un enfant d'arrêter quoi que ce soit. En fait, après, il faut voir s'il y a quelque chose de pathologique derrière. C'est-à-dire que, souvent, je vais vous donner des statistiques. En France, je ne sais pas si vous le savez, il y a une étude qui a été faite par mes collègues de l'Université de Tours qui montre qu'en fait, la grande majorité des élèves allophones, quand ils arrivent à l'école maternelle, parce que les enseignants ne savent pas ou n'ont pas une formation sur le bilinguisme, le plurilinguisme, et que les jeunes sont en train d'acquérir, ou en tout cas développer le bilinguisme, c'est ce qu'on appelle emergent bilingualism, que vous avez montré le ouvrage de Frédéric Garcia, et donc ils sont en train d'acquérir. Et donc c'est un processus, c'est une phase. Mais c'est vrai que les premiers concernés, ce sont les enseignants d'école maternelle. Et que faire en cas d'élèves qui ne parlent pas ou qui ont des difficultés? Eh bien, la voie de recours, 75% des élèves en France sont systématiquement envoyés chez l'orthophoniste. Et l'orthophonie, dans certaines cultures, on ne la connaît pas. On ne sait pas ce que ça veut dire. Et donc, que fait l'orthophoniste qui n'a pas de test adéquat dans notre langue? L'orthophoniste va les tester en français et va se rendre compte qu'en fait, effectivement, le petit ou la petite a des problèmes de vocabulaire, a des problèmes de prononciation, a des problèmes de syntaxe, mais il est en processus d'acquisition, d'apprentissage. Et donc, il ne faut pas vraiment... Vous savez, quel que soit le niveau, quel que soit le degré du bilinguisme, c'est ça que je vais essayer de vous montrer. C'est-à-dire que on peut avoir, vous savez, on parle, nous en tant que linguistes, on préfère réfléchir en termes de répertoire verbal. Nous avons un répertoire verbal, on peut avoir des répertoires verbaux, mais ces répertoires-là peuvent être soutenus, riches, développés, parce que j'ai eu la chance de faire des études, parce que j'ai eu la chance de lire beaucoup. Mais quelqu'un qui n'a jamais été à l'école, vous savez, dans les années 70, on a essayé d'évaluer, de dénombrer même le nombre de mots français qu'il fallait pour vivre heureux et enchanté toute sa vie. On a appelé le français fondamental. Est-ce que vous en avez entendu parler? Je suppose que oui. Le français fondamental, dans les années 70, ça a été 1250 mots, les amis. 1250 mots. Vous avez 1250 mots, vous pouvez vivre heureux et enchanté jusqu'à la fin de votre vie. Vous n'avez pas besoin de lire Hegel, Kant ou Marx. Mais en tout cas, on peut, je veux dire, et ça, vous voyez, ça dépend des contextes, ça dépend des situations, ça dépend. Et donc, c'est pour ça que la notion de semi-lingue m'horrifie, parce que semi-lingue, c'est moite-moite, comme disent les jeunes dans les quartiers. On ne peut pas être moite-moite. Quelqu'un, par exemple, est-ce qu'un monolingue connaît par cœur, connaît tous les noms de poissons, tous les noms d'oiseaux? Absolument pas. Donc on a des particularités, on a des spécificités, etc., etc. Donc un enfant qui peut avoir des problèmes éventuellement, il faut essayer de voir s'il y a quelque chose de pathologique derrière. Et pour cela, bien sûr qu'on a besoin des orthophonistes. Mais dans la majorité des cas en France, moi je travaille beaucoup avec les orthophonistes, puisque nous avons une école d'orthophonie avant, eh bien, je vous assure, ils font du français langue étrangère, pas plus ni moins, parce qu'il n'y a rien de pathologique derrière. Je ne sais pas si ça répond à votre question. Je vous enverrai, voyez là, sur l'écran, je n'ai pas mis professeur, docteur, je ne sais pas quoi, avec les PhD, j'ai mis mon email. Je vous ai dit que je partageais tout sur ma femme. Et donc, du coup, je peux vous envoyer des articles de mes collègues, justement, à l'Université de Tours, qui sont beaucoup intéressés aux enfants avec SLA, et donc avec des pathologies, pour montrer que, justement, c'était pas, on pouvait toujours acquérir, ou en tout cas, lui transmettre deux ou plusieurs langues. C'est pas du tout, ça n'empêche pas, ou c'est pas du tout un frein. Ok. Ah, il était prévu un break, et après je vous laisse pour un verre.
Vous pouvez vous faire un petit break de 10 minutes, s'il vous plaît, et on se retrouve dans l'auditorium, le théâtre, voilà, à tout de suite.